We're back on the NJ Real Estate Show. I am your host, Antonia Rahman. And what are we talking about today? Just I can't recap the whole story because I'm telling you folks, this is a long story. And we're not even halfway there yet. But anyway, we're talking about tax liens. And in continuation of this story, he had gotten a knock on the door. And it was that representative. A whole year had passed by. And it was now that representative. And she came to his door. His resident door, and she says, "Hey, you know what? We're no longer going to manage the property. We want to give you the keys back so you can do whatever you want to do with the property." And he came out and said to her, "Why don't you want to manage the property anymore?" He said to her, "I thought you had it all covered." She said, "Well, we've changed our mind. We're not going to manage as many properties now. And so we just want to give you back your keys and let you know, go do whatever you like with the property." So he takes back the keys and says, "Okay." So now he goes to the property. Now a whole year had passed. He never went to the property. Okay, this owner. He opens the door, walks in. There's a tenant there. And he said, "Oh, hi. I just wanted to let you know I'm the owner." And the tenant said, "You're the owner?" "I don't think so. The owner is Mrs. that rep, that he supposedly signed these management papers with." And he goes, "No, I'm the owner. She was managing the property for me, but now she's not going to manage it anymore. And I'm here, and I just want to let you know that, that she's no longer managing it for me, so I guess I'll have to manage it myself." And the tenant now starts to tell him that, as far as she knew, that lady was the owner of the property. She had been paying her $850 rent every month. He said, $850? She said, yes. He goes, "But my mortgage is only $430. Wow, that's a lot of money." She said, yes, it was. So, but we paid it every month, the $850. And we had problems with the missus because she wasn't doing according to what the township required landlords to do, homeowners to do when they're renting out their property. He said, "Well, what do you mean?" She goes, "Well, she never did the certificate of occupancy. She never did the repairs that we had here at the house. So we didn't have a choice. We went straight to the township and we reported her." And he goes, "Reported her? When did you do that?" She goes, "A few days ago." He goes, "Oh, really? Well, why?" She goes, "Because we weren't going to tolerate it anymore. And matter of fact, we stopped paying rent. We stopped paying last month's rent because we're now going to go to court." And he goes, "Really? Wow, that's interesting. Well, I just want to let you know that I guess because she's not managing the property anymore, I have to manage the property, so I need to collect the rent." And she says, "I'm not paying you rent. As far as I know, you're not the owner. She is." So what happens? He leaves there. He goes, "Well, what's going on here?" He goes home. No lie, folks. This is no lie. The same exact day. He goes home. He opens his mail. He has 3 violations from the township. And he gets a notification. This is no lie, folks. This is the truth. It happened. I helped this client with this situation. He gets a letter saying a tax lien has been placed on your property for non-payment of taxes. He said, "What in the world is going on here?" He picks up the phone. He calls that rep. She doesn't answer him. He leaves her a lengthy message. "What is going on here? You return me the keys." Da, 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 da. Now he starts to figure it out. He's like, "What is going on here?" So as he's in my office telling me this entire story, I said, "Boy, I think I already know where this is going." I said, I won't, for his confidentiality, he says I can share the story, but he doesn't want me to give his name. But anyway, my client, I said to him, I said, "Okay, so, can you show me the papers that you signed with this lady?" So He said, yeah, so he went home, he got the papers, I see all the papers. I have to tell him the bad news that unfortunately what happened was he did not sign a management contract. What he did was he transferred over the ownership of that property to that female rep, and that probably now there's already a new recorded deed with her name on it. But we have to make sure, he shows me the violations. He's like, I don't understand these violations, so I tell him, I translate it for him, and I tell him, well, there's a violation because you didn't get a certificate of occupancy with this tenant. There's a violation because supposedly you did not take out a license in that township. They required a license. Okay, and as well, there were some repairs that had to be done that was not addressed by the homeowner, so the township wants those issues addressed. Whatever they were, could have been some minor repairs. He says this is incredible. And then he shows me the other paperwork, saying that your taxes have not been paid in over a year, practically almost a year, and that there's a tax lien that's going to be placed on the property. Because at this point now there's someone else, a secret anonymous person, paying those taxes. And he said, what is going on here? I said, well, you apparently have a mess on your hands, I told him. I said, and even though you don't speak English or understand English correctly, perfectly, you should never sign any papers until you have given it to either a lawyer to review or someone else to review. Because folks, come on, let's be realistic here. People are getting, again, I say it again, people are getting scammed all the time. You need to be careful. So what we end up doing is I tell this client, okay, this client's not buying a house. This client's not renting a house. But he's saying, I don't know what to do with the property now. I said, well, let's find out. Let's go to the township. Let's ask the township about these violations. So we go to the township. They tell him why he has these violations. I said to the township, but you know what? This is what happened. I explained to the township what happened. And you know what? He's still the owner, right? The whole 9 yards. The township says to me, well, you know what, Anthony, thank God, it's good as a realtor, it's good for me to have relationships with the townships, The young lady at the township says to me, Anthony, I have to tell you, the deed does not have his name on it. And I said, oh boy, just as I thought. Because I saw the papers he gave me and I knew they were quickly. He goes, it's a Mrs. who supposedly now owns this property. So now I tell the township the whole story. I tell them what happened to this client. I told them, listen, this client will do everything in his power to resolve this and make it right. To then eventually, because then I asked the client, well, what do you want to do? Do you eventually want to put back a tenant in here? What do you want to do with this property? He says, I want to just sell this property, and I just want to get rid of it. I don't investments not my cup of tea. He said, I thought it would be, but I've had my works experience. Yeah, and I said, yeah, unfortunately you have, because you didn't read the documents, now, and your taxes. So anyway, what happens? We go to the county clerk's office. And yes, the county clerk's office confirms with him that the reason there's a tax lien is because he has not paid his taxes, and that an anonymous person has been paying taxes. So let me tell you something, folks. When you don't pay your taxes on your house, okay, there are people out there with like radar detectors, looking around trying to find out who are the homeowners out there that are not paying their taxes. Because they can go to the county clerk's office, look it up, who's in default of taxes, start making the payments on those defaulted taxes, because later in 2 years, that anonymous person who has paid those taxes for 2 years, taxes you're not paying, they can then come and do a tax certificate, so then they can be held and say, hey, I pay the taxes, now I'm going to claim this property is going to become mine. And they'll take that property away from you, and people don't realize it. So that's what happened to this client. He didn't realize that had happened. So when we were at the county clerk's office, we asked the county clerk, okay, well, how much has already been paid, what was past due? Folks, let me tell you, thank God that the property that he had was a small end property, just a 2 bedroom, one bath, one living room, kitchen, no dining. It was a small little row house. Taxes are very affordable in that area. So that he was really just literally behind like about $1,500 in taxes. So the county clerk said the only way you can resolve this is by paying this tax back, what you owe. And then basically what we do is we refund the anonymous person who's been paying the taxes back their money and tell them, at this point the owner has uh, he already reestablished and paying back the taxes, so you're not going to have an opportunity, to try to steal this property away from him because you pay taxes. And then they give him his money back, and then he has to walk away. Well, think about it, folks. This is my client who hardly doesn't have any money. He gets Social Security every month, doesn't have a pension, doesn't have anything. He has to pay a mortgage on the other small property that he lives in, and now he has these bills, and he's like pulling his hair and saying, how could this have happened to me? Well, it happens to folks all the time. You know why? Because we're not attentive to what we're signing. We're not paying attention. We're not reading it. We're not doing what we're supposed to do. We're not doing our homework, folks. Okay? So when we come back from this commercial, we're going to continue the story. And I'm really hoping that the story today is helping someone out there, because I know that a lot of people right now, they don't have their taxes included as with their mortgage payment. Okay? And they forget to pay the taxes. They fall behind on the taxes, and these are the things that happen. And you know what? It's not just the tax now that you owe that you're supposed to be paying on the property itself. Now, the tax assessor's office, they have applied penalties, late fees. Woo, you'd be surprised what they apply. And that's why my client now has $1,500. Technically, if when we went back and did the numbers, it really would have just been like $800. But because all the penalties and the fees, unfortunately, that's what it was. So when we come back from this commercial, we'll continue this story. Hi, and welcome back to the NJ Real Estate Show. I am your host, Antonia Roman. And what are we talking about today? Oh, my goodness, folks. I really hope that you've been watching, because this story just continues to escalate as I share it with you. So, what happens, okay? Now my client, he has $1,500 of a back taxes that have to be paid, okay? He has around $300 of violations, summonses he's received from the township, okay? He has a vacant, at this point the tenants already left, okay? They leave, they pack their bags and they leave. He has now a vacant property. He's got repairs he's got to do. Who knows how much it's going to cost him now for this bed. So he's pulling his hair. He's like, Antonia, what am I going to do? And I said, well, sir, what we're going to do is we're going to take it step by step. We're going to resolve each issue. We're going to make sure that justice is served. Because I am a big advocate when it comes to stopping those individuals who are taking people for granted, who scam them, or who just make people's lives miserable, period. Okay? I don't like those people, and I will honestly say it to you, because it is not correct. It's not the right thing to do. Especially, I don't like it when someone speaks the person's other language, whether Spanish, Portuguese, whatever it is, and they take advantage of the situation. So I told them, I said, we're gonna make sure that everything, we do everything accordingly. So what do? We take it step by step. We go back to the county clerk's, department in the town. We tell them, okay, we want to resolve this. He goes, he borrows the $1,500 from a family member. Thank God for that family member. He borrows the $1,500. He goes, he pays back the back taxes, $1,500. Now he knows that they're not gonna, try to steal this property away from him, okay, because, he technically, is still responsible. So he resolves that with the county clerk's department. There's some papers he had to fill out, okay. He had to pay the fee. He got his receipt, okay.